Welcome to the WhatWorks Clearinghouse Group Design Standards version 4.1 Recertification Training. This video describes changes to the WhatWorks Clearinghouse Standards and Procedures that differentiate version 4.1 from version 4.0 of the WWC Standards and Procedures Handbooks. In order to become recertified as a WWC reviewer under version 4.1, you must demonstrate proficiency with the version 4.1 standards and procedures by watching this video and correctly answering the accompanying follow-up activity. The most substantial revision in version 4.1 of the WWC handbooks relates to evidence synthesis. To calculate the overall effect size in an intervention report, the WWC will now use a fixed effects meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a statistical method used to combine multiple effect sizes across studies of the same intervention. Previously, in intervention reports reviewed under version 4.0 or earlier, the WWC calculated an unweighted average of the effect sizes of studies within an intervention report, assigning equal importance to each effect size. Now, in version 4.1, each individual effect size will be weighted by the inverse of its variance prior to averaging. This change allows larger studies to contribute more in determining the magnitude of an overall intervention effect. Formulas for calculating the fixed effects meta-analytic estimates can be found in Appendix H of the WWC Procedures Handbook. The WWC is modifying how it characterizes findings in intervention reports under version 4.1. In version 4.0, intervention ratings were determined based on a vote counting approach. In order for an intervention to receive a rating of positive effects under version 4.1, the intervention must now have evidence from multiple studies that meet WWC standards with a meta-analytic effect size estimate that is positive and significant. More than 50% of the weight from the meta-analysis must come from studies that meet WWC standards without reservations. If an intervention has a positive mean effect size in the meta-analysis, but either is only evaluated in one study that meets standards or has less than half of the weight in the meta-analysis drawn from studies that meet WWC standards without reservations, that intervention will be classified as having potentially positive effects instead. For more information on these changes, see Section 6C of the version 4.1 Procedures Handbook. The WWC is also refining procedures for synthesizing results across studies by adjusting the computation of an overall effect size when a single study has multiple outcomes in the same domain. The WWC encourages authors to report correlations among measures in the same domain in their studies. If correlations are not reported, then WWC reviewers may consult a test manual or they may conduct an author query to obtain the correlations. If reviewers are unable to obtain the correlations, then a correlation of 1 between the effect sizes is assumed. When available to compute the variance of the average effect, the WWC will use the average empirical correlation between the measures to estimate the correlation among effect sizes. In this case, the average effect refers to the average of multiple effect sizes within the same domain in a single study. This process of using a more precise correlation in computing the variance of the mean effect will increase power without bringing the type 1 error rate below 0.05. In addition, the Procedures Handbook now presents formulas for calculating standard errors for effect sizes in any study that is rated meets WWC standards with or without reservations. The standard error calculations are done through the online study review guide. The WWC has also clarified when to apply a difference in differences effect size adjustment. If pre-test and post-test effect size estimates for differences between conditions are based on the same kind of statistical test, reviewers should use the gain score effect size formula and the pooled post-test standard deviation. Otherwise, calculate Hedges G separately for the pre-test and post-test, and take the difference between the post-test value of G and the pre-test value of G multiplied by the correlation between the baseline and outcome measures. See Appendix E of the version 4.1 Procedures Handbook for more details. Version 4.1 includes clearer rules about choosing which studies are eligible for WWC review. publicly available master's and specialist theses are eligible for WWC review. In cases where multiple versions of the same study are publicly available, the final version submitted to the Education Resources Information Center, or ERIC, takes precedence. The journal-published version takes precedence only if no study has been submitted to ERIC. Reviewers should submit author queries after the first study review if there is not enough information to determine whether the study meets WWC standards. Additional author queries after the first review are at the discretion of the review team lead. These are the significant changes made to the Procedures Handbook for version 4.1 that may impact your review of a study. Please see the summary of changes for the full list. Most of what's new in version 4.1 affects the WWC Procedures Handbook. However, two notable changes appear in the WWC Standards Handbook. First, in uncompromised, randomized, controlled trials, missing baseline data can now be replaced with a constant value, most often 0, and a missing value indicator variable. Missing baseline data in quasi-experimental designs and missing outcome data must still be addressed by other methods outlined in the WWC Standards Handbook, such as complete case analysis, non-response weights, or imputation. These methods can all still be applied the same way as under version 4.0. In addition, the WWC no longer describes findings from single or multiple outcome measures as substantively important. No matter how large an estimated effect size is, if it is not estimated precisely enough to be statistically significant, it will no longer be described as substantively meaningful by the WWC. This will ensure that determinations about what works are based on well-powered studies and precisely estimated results, which give reviewers and users alike the highest confidence in the accuracy of the characterizations. This concludes the recertification training video for the WhatWorks Clearinghouse Group Design Standards and Procedures version 4.1. To complete the recertification training and update your certification status, you must complete the follow-up activity associated with this video and submit your responses to the WWC Help Desk. More information about the follow-up activity can be found on the WWC website. Please find the link in the YouTube description.